Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a distribution, desktop environment, or could be an application. We also want to chat about any news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that's Linux tech and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, the Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost, excuse me, got a little throat thing going on here. An almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. With me today, I got Dolphin, I got Cruz, I have Swift, Sean, Eric, Jinda, Allie, Eris. Welcome. Thank you all for being here.
Hey, what's going on?
Well, on the docket for today, we're going to be talking about antiX, doing a little straw poll about the antiX. If there's any time for some community and news discussion, we'll do that as well. But first, what we've been doing in Linux and tech. Anybody want to jump in there? I know we kind of chatted a little bit ahead of time. Actually, Dolphin, you haven't been here in a while. Is there anything exciting you've been doing in Linux and tech? Well, you're muted.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Does that work?
Yeah. Beautifully.
What are we doing? No, I'm not doing anything exciting.
I somehow don't believe that.
I'm no here. It's all been all about scouts and school and work here the last few months, but been playing a lot with. Actually, I've been an XFCE guy for a long time, so I was playing with Plasma.
Oh,
this last go around, trying to fix some things in MX. So I've been running Plasma for a while, and
are you loving it?
Yeah, it took me about a week. It seems like it takes a little bit of time when you make a switch like that. But now it's like, okay, now I go back to XFCE, and it's like all the little things that bugged me about XFCE stick out, and I miss the things about Plasma. But if I go back to Plasma, then it'll be the things that bug me about Plasma.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess it's just playtime, really.
That's fantastic. Now, are you playing with 5.27 Plasma or 6.
Right now, yeah, because that's the version on MX. We've been doing some stuff kind of that's not out in front of people right now for the future MX stuff for the next Debian switch, but all that's kind of, I'm not willing to let that out just yet because it makes me nervous. It's a major change.
Gotcha.
So
well, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of MX fans here. I think Jinda, you're running MX right now, right?
Yeah, I've run MX for a long time.
So, a lot of love for MX. And then Terry, who's usually here, he's a big proponent of antiX and MX. So, there's a lot of that. So somehow you've captured the hearts and minds of so many out there in the community. However you did that.
There's just something about the MEPIS offshoots that people tend to land on us and stay forever. So when I got into Linux, I started with actually Slackware, and then I quickly transitioned to Ubuntu, and then somehow ended up on antiX at the time, and that was years and years ago. And I just kind of, we just kind of hang around forever. Some of the same guys who were there when I joined the forum years and years ago are still there. So that's
pretty wild.
This is MX's 10-year anniversary, and last year was MEPIS's 20th. So the project's been around for a while.
You know what? That really dates me because I remember when MEPIS came out and seeing, the announcements and trying it and thinking, wow, this is a different take. That 20 years. Jeez.
Yeah, the first release of MEPIS actually came out before the first release of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
If it gives you a kind of, you want to age yourself, it was basically, what is it? Knoppix and MEPIS doing kind of the weird live stuff back then.
I remember that.
Now everybody does it, but really it was Knoppix and MEPIS early on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you, I just remember it being so cohesive, like you said, the community. I would guess that so many people have sort of stuck around because that was a huge focus from the outset. Taking people's feedback and suggestions and really cooperative, sort of collaborative process. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I always say, the community at MX is older than the distributions. It's older than antiX. It's older than MX, because it all started as mepislovers.org. 1,000 years ago.
Is that domain still owned by anybody?
I don't know. Maybe. Oh, I don't know who owns mephislivers.org. I don't. It doesn't work. I don't think.
Oh,
We may still own it,
that's
but
pretty
yeah,
wild.
that went way back. And that's actually when I joined the forum. That's what it was. Uh, the the guy that ran it, Mepis, was actually more or less a one man show, and then the
Oh,
community grew up around it because they liked it so
sure.
much. It was a commercial distribution. I mean, most of the people who were running Mepis lovers were subscribers to the original Mepis system. So, and they ran the third party repo for everything that wasn't in the regular Mepis repo. They ran the Mepis lovers repo
Hmm.
as a community type project. So,
No,
and
go
then
ahead.
antiX offshot off of that, off of Mepis because he liked the live system and he wanted to do a nice lightweight thing that Mepis definitely was not doing because KDE, what is that, 3?
At the time, yeah,
Um,
probably.
it was beefy in comparison to a lot of the other desktops at the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I think it was Mandrake that kind of grabbed me at that time, so I didn't go down the Mepis road. I went down the RPM road, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that was the time when if you wanted to run Red Hat, you went into your local computer shop and you bought a box with Red Hat in it, and
Yep.
and which is what my father did when he took half my computer and put Red Hat on it, and that was kind of how it went.
Yeah, I saw a box of Mandrake that I purchased locally, and it's like for like $20 or something like that, $30. I can't remember what it was. I could go check, but I don't want to walk away from the screen right now because I've done this before and I still can't remember. Yeah, well, very cool. Well, I haven't seen you in a while. It's nice for you to pop in. Sorry about last week. I had a work issue pop in, and we're in a nutshell. The plant where I work is tied into two different independent grids essentially. Both of them went down, and that's never happened in the history of the plant. So that messed everything up, and it was still messed up for a few days after. So anyway, pretty exciting. Made for a great Saturday for me. Well, I guess we could probably get in that straw poll, Eris. I don't know if everyone has had a chance yet to vote on the straw poll. How was your experience with antiX Linux? Um, make your voice heard, or your clicks something. Make your clicks found or appear. I don't know, something like that.
So I guess I'll give it a few more seconds. I didn't get any replies about the poll,
Okay.
but I did see some comments about people questioning the name anti-X and thinking that this was a Wayland only distro because of the name.
Maybe someday it might be.
So I think people are still voting. It's changing.
Oh, good. It was a little bit light on the votes initially.
Yeah. So about the name, is it supposed to be antics and not anti-X? Is that the purpose of the name? Like different abilities, or is it unknown why it's called antics or
Well,
anti-X?
well, the main developer and the owner and the founder and however else you want to call him, his username is Anticapitalista. So anti is a play off his name, and antiques as in hijinks, and antiques as in antiques. Uh,
That makes a
um,
lot of sense.
and if the anti-X, it's not it's there, but I mean everything runs X. There is a release that doesn't run X. It's CLI only. The core ISO boots to a command prompt, and you can have your fun with that.
Okay, thanks. About the voting, I think everybody voted now. Let me see. So the question was, how was your experience with antiX or antiX Linux? And the number one answer is it is good with 26%, followed by it's amazing, it's magic, 21%. 21% not interested in this exploration. 21% didn't have enough time. 10% said it's okay. And 10% said other. I did not get those other. Maybe they said it in YouTube chat, but I haven't seen that yet. And 5% did not have a good time with it. You're muted, Nate.
So Tex Penguin got 0 votes.
Yeah, that's actually weird. It always gets at least one vote, I think.
Yeah. Usually Tux gets,
At least one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
jeez.
maybe somebody's
Poor
angry
Tux.
with Tux. Yeah. Tick somebody off. What can you do? All right. Well, a little history about antics, and go ahead and, of course.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead if you want to do that.
Well, I just know your voice.
My voice is
Isn't
not
great,
so
so-
great right now. Yes, I'm fine with you taking.
Is it there?
Oh, hang on.
Or am I in the wrong note?
No, you're probably in the right notes. It's not you, it's me. I had it somewhere else.
Ah, there you go. Thank you. So, antiX Linux is a fast, lightweight, and easy-to-use Linux live CD distribution that is based on Debian Stable. It is compatible with Intel AMD x86 systems and can run on most computers, including 256 megabyte old systems with pre-configured swap. Antix has 4 editions: Full, Base, Core, and Net. The Full edition includes a full range of applications, the LibreOffice Suite, and Synaptic Package Manager. Base is a smaller edition with fewer apps but the same desktop session, allowing the user to choose from their own application suite. Core is a very small edition that does not include any graphical environment, and Net is similar to Core but doesn't include any non-Libre firmware.
There you go. Look at that.
You're just going to give me a little bit at a time?
Yeah.
So 2007, Antix is founded. 2013, members of the MEPIS community discuss future options. 2014, Antix versions join MEPIS to form MX Linux. MX Linux in 2016 is listed as a separate distro on DistroWatch. And in 2023, Antix 23 is released, codenamed Arditi del Popolo, which means the people's darling ones.
So that was a really
And that's all
brief,
the text. So unless
yeah.
Nate's going to put more in there for me.
Nope, that's it. So I
Okay.
don't want to belabor it too much. And since Dolphin is here, he would probably, anything I say is probably going to be inaccurate anyway. And, may as well let him speak as opposed to,
Well, I don't know how versed I am on lore, but the Anti tends to name his code names tend to be revolutionaries, resistance members, some protesters, those kinds of things. That's actually an Italian anti-fascist group that stood up to Mussolini's programs back in the 20s or so. So pre-World War II, but Mussolini moving into Italy. So it's an Italian group. I wasn't up on my history. I had to look that one up too. But he off and on over the years, he's named them after various activist type
right.
Gotcha.
people.
Which, that I can see how some people might not like that, but I think that one of the beauties of the open source software is that whole free speech aspect of it, where people can just say whatever they want to say, and if you don't like it, you don't like it, go someplace else, I suppose. So I like it, even if it's
There's always that sort of, sort of standing up to the establishment
Mhm.
and, that. So it kind of fits.
and doesn't bother me.
Somebody in Telegram had a question that was kind of basic, but at the same time kind of very important. And they said, what is the difference between MX Linux and antiX Linux?
Well, the difference is MX is not. Antix is systemd free, where MX is not. And a lot of people think MX is, but it isn't. We actually ship. We're the only people left on the planet still shipping with both sysvnet and systemd on the same ISO. We've been maintaining the shim system for a while. Antix just completely got away from it. I'd have to look and see. I don't even think it's using like the eLogND and the EU dev stuff from that the Gentoo folks cooked up. They're using like seatd now for session management and a few other things. But anyway, he tries to maintain a systemd free environment, but his core mission is being lean and mean. That's kind of like the slogan for Antix, lean and mean. And that's why you get, okay, yes, there's a bunch of window managers on the ISO, but they're all really small, right? MX is heavier and we don't have quite the same mission. We share the live system to a great extent, and we share a mess of the tooling. The mess of the tools can go back and forth both ways. If you ran Antix for a while, you'd probably see some apps that look very familiar from the MX space. Anti strips the MX out of them from a branding standpoint, but other than that, they're the same apps.
Very fast installation process too.
It's the same installer. Now we go out of our way to make the installer exactly the same code. It's actually a same project. It's a separate project from both MX and Antix. Technically, you could do it with other systems too, but it's set up for Antix and MX.
I like that it's not like anybody else's installers. It is its own installer, and I appreciate how, and I think we talked about this last time we did MX, but it starts the installation process while you finish up putting everything else in. And while I was installing MX Linux, and we're not there yet, but I did notice that it finished installing before I even got done putting all my stuff in there.
I tell you, if you have a fast system, that will happen, and you're using the basic ext4 file systems and things like that, that will often happen. I often, you get sidetracked for 2 seconds, and all of a sudden it's waiting for you to put in a username because you haven't got that far yet, and it's done copying the system.
It's hilarious.
It's very fast. Someone on Telegram earlier in the week was like, "This installer looks like it's 20 years old." That's because it is 20 years old.
What's wrong with that?
Nailed it.
It originally we kept the name. It's still Minstall from the command line, but it's the original Mepis installer with 20 years of development laid on top of it. So yes, if you compared them side by side, they superficially look the same, but they're very, very different beasts from back then. But you get used to the interface, you keep it.
Right. And why change it if it works?
And it is tooled to work with the Antix Live system, so that a lot of other installers we would have to write new modules for. So we decided long ago to keep this one.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Well, and I just appreciate and always have that. Unlike a lot of installers which try to really hide information, or if they do provide it, it's like just basically like jargon and slogans, and like it's not really helpful in my opinion. Whereas this installer gives you like context. It tells you what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you might want to choose one thing over another, and it's what I would expect. I don't know, it just feels like it informs you as you're going, rather than kind of getting to a point and thinking like, well, wait a minute, so
If you really want to nerd out, run the installer and click on the live tab instead of all the help text. The little help text side is tabbed, and you can flip over to the live tab. It'll show you every command the thing's running as it goes through, which is nice because then you can see if it fails somewhere, you can see where it fails, and then it makes it log and all that cool stuff. But you can actually watch it live. And the guy that is mostly maintaining it these days, he put in he's color coded the thing, so it's kind of nerd out, go to town. The old Ubuntu installer used to do that. You could have a window in the bottom, and you could watch all the commands scroll by as it was doing whatever it was doing. Everybody wants to hide that stuff now.
I don't know why they want to hide that. That's actually the best part. Like
because sometimes being a nerd's cool and sometimes it's not.
Well, like now they have like the Plymouth start screen, all that stuff. It has like, now I see like tumbleweed and it does a little spinning thing. I'm like, yeah, I guess it's fine. But if you hit escape, then you get to see all the cool things.
Yeah.
Escape should always be an option. All right, so some of the ISO options they have a set of sysv in it and run it. I don't know. I guess run it's an alternative to sysv in it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's another init system. Yeah,
So
it's pretty speedy.
so you have they have a full 64-bit and 32-bit, a base 64-bit 32-bit, core 64-bit 32-bit, and then a net 64 and 32. So I just went with the full because it was small anyway, and I went with the sysv in it instead of the run it. I wasn't familiar with run it, so I just didn't use it. Did anybody here use run it instead of sysv in it? No? Crickets? Wasn't run it developed by Ubuntu some time ago? Or was it somebody
No,
else?
that's Upstart,
Upstart, that's right. Okay.
and that is still used to this day by Chrome OS.
Huh.
Oh,
Imagine that.
I think Runit is known for being used by antiX, right? antiX Linux,
Could be.
or no, or Artix. Artix, I mean Artix is a Arch derivative that doesn't use systemd.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I installed it, and I will say I didn't have any issues installing it. I think I said earlier that it was very quick. How fast it just went from nothing to everything. So that was pretty cool. Like basically, once you set where you want it to install and say okay, gives you a little sanity check, and then you're off to the races. Or I should say, it's racing you to the end of the installer. Maybe that'd be a better way of saying it. So that was pretty impressive. Anybody have any comments on that? White chocolate. I know you're an antiX. You actually were doing this because of you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I use both antiX and MX. So I use MX on desktop and I use antiX on the laptop.
Interesting. I did notice in the collection of applications there is an on-screen keyboard that's already included in antiX. I don't remember if that's included in MX or not.
Yeah, if it's on board, it's on both of them.
Yep, on board.
You can. And I don't know if you can use it with the login manager on antiX, but you can because LightDM supports it on MX. LightDM supports it, so we can do it there. But yeah, I noticed it's been a little while since I hadn't updated my. I actually updated my live USBs for the show, and I noticed that the onboard was on there now. But that's the keyboard. There's also a screen magnifier. We're using the same application set there, Magnus, I think, so that you can, if you need to magnify things, there's that for you.
That's pretty cool. I think the on-screen keyboard is just a good thing to have because I think there's a lot of tablets or what are those 2-in-1 like foldable PCs or laptops, whatever, that have the so you can go keyboardless, I guess. So I think that's pretty cool.
There's another interesting use case for having an on-screen keyboard, and that is every now and then, Bluetooth keyboards won't connect if you're using a Bluetooth, and if they don't connect, you don't have any way to log in. You can't do anything. There's no Control-Alt backspace. There's no nothing. You don't have a keyboard.
Right.
So the on-screen keyboard gives you kind of another safety net there, too.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that, but that's a good point. Yeah, I used to use a Bluetooth keyboard on my one of my systems, but it was so irritating logging in because sometimes, just as you said, it just wouldn't initially connect. So I went with just a wireless keyboard on that. But yeah. So when you installed antiX and you were presented with the desktop and so forth, what were your initial impressions of it?
I think it has a sort of a Unix feel to it in the sense that, like, especially like settings, control panel, all that, it was like one section or one area of focus instead of being sort of more mixed together, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, excuse me. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm reading my notes from like a week and a half ago, but that basically was my takeaway, that it feels a little eclectic to start with, but then you realize like, oh, okay, this is, very specific to this. And it also can be a bit overwhelming because you've got configurations and settings for like two or three different aspects of the desktop. So from that perspective, I guess it could seem a little complicated, but I mean, I don't think it would take very long. And also the advantage of that, very long to get used to it. And the advantage would be that it seems very customizable.
Yeah, I noticed it's ICE Window Manager is the default one, at least the one that came up for me. So I wasn't sure if that was the same for others. But yeah, I think it looks a little bit less flashy than I would say like Plasma or GNOME or even any of the other more. It's a window manager, not a desktop environment. Is that correct? Is that what it is? ICE Window Manager.
Right. All antiX uses window managers for everything. So and they're very small. ICE WM is the default because it has the most traditional interface. It looks. I always laugh. People talk about XFC looking like Windows 98. ICE WM looks like Windows 98, and
Yeah.
that is never going to change because this is the
Yeah.
way it looks. But but it has some nice things out of the can. You hit the Windows key and the menu pops up, and you've got the cascading menus that are built into the window manager without having to go to a third-party panel. It's got a lot of nice stuff. It's friendly. AntiX used to use Fluxbox, which is still on there as a default, but it was just a hair weird for people with because Fluxbox didn't have a toolbar in quite the same way. It had a bar, but you couldn't launch applications from it. It was just for switching tasks mostly. So somewhere along the way, this thing became the default, and I think it was a good choice. And then somewhere along the way, JWM came along, which is what Puppy uses. And there's some natural comparisons between Annex and Puppy. JWM actually, if I remember correctly, the JWM combinations are actually slightly lighter on RAM than the IceWM configurations, but the IceWM usability I think is just a touch better than the JWM. Some people will disagree, but at any rate, IceWM's been the default now for I bet it's been a decade, and it's pretty good. But you can actually choose that from the live boot menu right before you ever even launch Antix. You can choose which desktop you want to start it up on first launch. So it is possible to launch one of the others without ever having booted the system.
I personally like ICE. I know it's really lightweight, and it's also, for what it's worth, it's automatically installed in OpenSUSE as well. So if you somehow screw up your DE, you can always go to IceWM. And,
that's interesting. Okay.
It's a nice little backup.
I think the only thing that so nothing was like out of place or confusing. I think the only thing that was a little bit difficult was I wanted to have a dark mode because I'm just kind of dark mode all the things sort of person. But when I went in and picked dark, it looked like there was some. Well, it didn't look like there were some areas of the UI that didn't quite translate well, and then the pop-up welcome thing in the background, some of the text in there must have a color, explicit color assigned, because it was dark text on a dark background and I couldn't read it, so I had to switch back to light. I mean,
some of the
real
older
basic stuff.
AntiX tools still use I want to say there's a common library for how they look, and some they do have colored text that doesn't change when the theme changes.
Gotcha.
I was using the Corstero Dark Medium, and I really like that one as far as the options for dark theme. And I don't know, I didn't run into a problem. Maybe I just didn't go to the right place to run into that problem.
You'll run into it pretty quick with the dark theme and the persistence management tools. If those pop up in a dark, you get like green text on black background, and it can be tough to read.
Gotcha.
But a lot of times it's mitigated a little bit because a lot of those applications run as root, and then you get a different theme anyway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I noticed for me the browser. I'm using Dark Reader in Firefox, so that's the main thing is if I'm staring at the browser. which is where I'm at most of the time. So the tools, if you have to open a menu or configuration option and set something and you're closing it right away, like it's not a big deal. So, did anyone else have thoughts on the initial impressions or the UI, anything like that?
I like the conky in the background. I like that nerdy stuff. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the default antiX conky is pretty cool, and it actually is slightly different if you're running live versus if you're running on an installed system. It'll show you some additional information if you're running live. I'm trying. Yes, it tells you if you what persistence mode you have enabled and things like that. Did anybody try it? If we're talking about interface, anybody try it on a high DPI monitor?
I did not.
We don't get a lot of that because it's targeted towards older machines, but there is a tool. I'm running it right now for this call on live. It's sort of off the USB. I'm actually loaded the whole system into RAM, which is something else antiX can do.
Oh, wow.
And so I already like everything, like Zoom's loaded from RAM, everything's loaded from RAM. It's kind of freaking awesome. But it does take a lot of heavy RAM. It's kind of the opposite of what you'd expect for an older machine because you need a lot of RAM to do that.
Right.
So this machine doesn't have that problem. But you can there's a tool in the control panel called Set DPI that you can in the window manager. It works rather nice to set the DPI because the window frames and things tend to size based on the size of the text. So if you're on a machine like I am, I went from the default 96 up to the default 125, or up to 120, which if you're doing the math at home is about a 25%, 1.25 scale factor. But it's just on the text. So, but on IceWM, the menu is sized based on how big the text is. So it works well to read the menus. It works well to read all the toolbars and stuff. You still got to fool around with things like zoom settings inside of your web browser and stuff like that. It's not true scaling. It just makes all the text bigger.
So something I do
But
appreciate
on a text-based window manager, it gets you a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Does it use scalable vector graphics then for the icons, or does it have just different icon like resolutions?
That's an excellent question that I don't know the answer to. I would guess they're PNGs and there's multiple sizes.
Okay.
I don't think the icons will change based on what you set the DPI, so that the icons just probably stay small.
Okay. So a feature that I didn't really test it out, but I thought was kind of cool to see is they have a click a window to memorize its position, and I can see where that'd be very valuable for a lot of people who have specific workflows that they want to walk into when they start up an application, whatever. So I think that's a pretty neat feature to have. I also like to make it very easy to add things in the auto start. So I appreciate how now Plasma's a lot easier with that. And actually, they may not been too bad. There's some DEs or some. All right, so Windows is really terrible about auto start. But anyway, I appreciate how easy they make that to just put stuff in the auto start as well. I also really appreciate that antiX installs DOSBox right out of the gate. I don't know whose decision that was, but tip my hat to you, good sir or ma'am. So
that goes so far back that DOSBox has been there for years and years and years. And when I use DOSBox to play MechWarrior 2.
Really?
Because you will never ever actually master MechWarrior 2. You just have to keep playing it. And so I've been playing it for 20 years. And DOSBox runs really well. In fact, it used to have to ramp the thing up. Now I got to slow it down a little bit because the systems I'm running on are so much faster than I can play on. But DOSBox is epic. I'm glad someone else likes it. Oh, you're into retro gaming, so you would.
Right.
So
I like the old stuff, so I can't help it. But it made me smile. Yeah, there was it's probably a couple years ago. I went down to like a real heavy bunny trail down the DOSBox lane, and I set up Windows 3.1 in DOSBox and made an actual usable like basically I just launched Windows 3.1 and I could edit text files on my Linux file system. So basically it was just kind of like not quite a skin on top of, but like if I full screened it, it would just be sitting on top of Plasma with Plasma behind it, and I could just play like I'm in Windows 3.1. I didn't quite get the aspect ratio thing worked out because it did have a 4:3 aspect ratio, which wouldn't be too bad on my framework, but it was kind of bad on like a 6:9 ratio. Anyway, so I thought I didn't play with it enough to really tweak it out, but I was editing text files and configs and everything in Windows 3.1 for Plasma. So it was a silly bunny trail. I never actually, shame on me. I didn't like make an article out of it because I think it would have been kind of fun to do so. I probably should. I should probably revisit that now and see if I can get see if I can actually get the aspect ratio to change to fit with the screen. Anyway, but yeah, DOSBox, you can do a lot of great things with it, and the fact that you can run 3.1 as awesomely as you can. It would be really neat to see, like, if you do the Windows for Work groups, if you how far you can actually take this. And
Did you install it from like 15 floppies?
No.
I was gonna say, where'd you find the floppy disks?
Well, I have tons of floppies, but no.
Well, floppy, I guess all you need is a drive, right?
Right, and I got that too. I don't have a 5 1/4 floppy drive for my Linux machines, but
yeah,
maybe someday.
Yeah.
No,
Here's my $2 yard sale copy of MechWarrior 2 with the awesome Ghost Bears expansion. I mean, the whole set for $2. It included the manual.
Nice.
Because software had manuals.
wow.
And it's funny. I always thought when people divulge into talking about old stuff, but it's perfect for the antics talk because antics is geared towards old stuff. Now, you're not going to dust off an ancient computer and it will magically run one of these games, but in DOSBox, but you're much more likely to get the thing to a graphical interface than with some other heavy ones.
Yeah, for sure. And since it's really light on resources too, you're going to have a lot more space to those things.
The less you have in your interface, the more you can give DOSBox.
Right.
What they used to say about DOSBox is the way to turn a barn burner of a PC into a 486.
Perfect.
Or 386 in some cases. It just uses massive amounts of power to do something that took a lot of power 20 years ago. So, but it does work.
Yeah, for sure. Were there any? So I comment on the on-screen keyboard too, on board. I thought that was really good. And then DOSBox. I was really taken aback by DOSBox. I was just so happy to see that somebody has a love for DOSBox besides me, and it was such a beautiful thing. And now I want to see if, going down the DOSBox lane, how far can you really push that? I mean, is it pretty close to full on, like, DOS compatibility? Is it there for pretty much anything? If you can run Windows 3.1, it seems like where are your limits? I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, I would have to think if it can do that, which more or less required a full DOS install underneath of it, right?
Yeah.
Then I mean, you've got it. DOS 6.2.2, is it? Or
Yep. I think that's it. Well, no, there's FreeDOS now, which is basically FreeDOS have been doing DOS now longer than Microsoft ever did DOS. So there's that.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's food
Yeah,
for
I
thought.
haven't done DOS in a very long time.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was great. So that was pretty fantastic. So anybody else have any other thoughts on antiX and maybe how you use it? And white chocolate, you said you use it on your laptops primarily. I don't know if like Ron, since Ron has a lot of those old ThinkPads, I would think that he'd be an antiX kind of guy too.
Well,
squeeze everything you can out of that ThinkPad.
I was using an X31 with Windows XP just to run 2 games in DOSBox. Star Gunner, I think that was released in '96, and Wolfenstein 3D. So I decided to blow the driveway and put antiX on there. And yeah, DOSBox really quite ruled and loaded up my games. And so I think that machine is going to stay with antiX for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to install it on a 32-bit Dell Inspiron 15100 that I bought 20 years ago. Wait, 21 years ago? No, 20 years. Yeah, 20 years ago. Anyway, somewhere around there. But I can't find the power supply. So it may still happen, but I got to find that power supply. Maybe I just have to order a new one or new old stock or something. But it'd be interesting to see if I can still get a little use out of that computer, that my first laptop, essentially. But any other thoughts you might want to throw out there for antics? You know, Prophetic, he joined, and he's a big he likes that Yellow Dog Linux. No, that's not it. What is it again? He likes
The puppies.
Puppy Linux. That's right. I was way off.
The antiX, those Windows managers, it reminds me of Joe's window manager on Puppy.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's on there.
awesome.
That's JWM. It's on there.
Oh, okay, yeah, so it's there. Yeah, I thought
can
it looked
choose it.
familiar.
If there's a button on the toolbar, you don't even have to log out. You can just it'll kill the current window manager and replace it with the next one. It's in
Yeah.
the
Taste of nostalgia.
it's in the desktops bar. I'm not going to do it while we're running live because I'll almost certainly hose up Zoom.
Well, I'm
I
going to
trust
do it.
antics. I don't trust Zoom.
Oh yeah, it didn't hose anything up. All my applications are still running.
Yeah, good.
Amazing, right?
That is actually really amazing. How does that even what kind of like technical voodoo is that? I mean, that's got to be
Well, actually, because all you're doing is replacing a window manager instead of replacing all the gobbledygook that's attached to a desktop environment. It's relatively simple. I mean, if you've ever run a xfwm replace command to start up CompBiz or something like that, it's essentially the same thing. It's just you're starting up another window manager. No, all the looks like, eLinks 2 is installed on there. So,
Yeah.
you want to go total console, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't quite ready to go that bare bones, but
There's
I hadn't done
actually
it.
a console version of the control center as well, and there's a console package manager that Antix has. CLI aptX, I think, is the name of that, and it has some interesting ideas and features going along with it. Somewhere in my YouTube channel, I have a video on this thing where I set up a whole system to run music without any GUI, just with the console stuff, and it was doable. It was strangely doable. It took me a little while to figure out how to record the screen, but it was very doable.
Mm. Are those tools you'd use like on the core version? So you don't have a GUI, so you could still use
Yeah,
package
you could
manager?
with the core. I think that's actually
Okay.
what I used for the video, but all those tools I believe are installed on the full edition. Um, Full's nice because Full's got all kinds of stuff crammed into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Base, the original modus operandi of Base, the reason for being was so that it would fit on a CD, so that you could use it on truly old machines that didn't have a DVD player. I'm not sure that's actually still true anymore, but uh, Base still only has, I think Base only has one window manager, for instance. Um, it's been a long time since I booted up a Base ISO. I usually use Full because it's like
Gotcha.
kind of tiny anyway. But you make an interesting point about some of the application choices. If you're trying to go for a lightweight system, why are some of the choices made the way they are? The reason they're made the way they are, we used to use lighter weight stuff, and the experience was usually bad. Okay,
Mm.
so like everyone always says, well, use AbiWord instead of LibreOffice. Well, that's great. There's nothing wrong with AbiWord. I used AbiWord for years. But as soon as you got to open anything that's not an AbiWord file or an RTF file,
Yeah.
you're hosed. It doesn't work. And Anti uses this stuff for his work. So when he got tired I had to find it in the forum. There's probably a thread somewhere where he was like, you know what, we're using LibreOffice Writer, and I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah. Well, and those are choices that, you would have to make for, I mean, being productive and things like that. And you're right. I mean, I used AbiWord for a long time because it was really one of the nicest uh, word processors, frankly. I mean, the UI and the functionality was great, but
It's
you're
still
right. I mean,
nice. And when I use it, I save everything as RTFs so that
mm,
I can maximize where I can open it elsewhere.
yeah.
But yeah, I like it. It's cute. It's been a while since I've used it, but it was I certainly used it for a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's why some like Firefox is there instead of something else because okay, Antix is a small project. It's been around forever, but it's a small project. Anything we can get out of the Debian archive, we really kind of need to do.
Hmm.
And you might say, well, Firefox ESR doesn't update very often. That is true. It doesn't update very often, but it does update.
Yeah.
And it updates whenever it needs to update if there's something super critical, and then it updates periodically over the life of a Debian system. So the ESR isn't old, it just means extended support. It means it just goes slower than everybody else. You skip all the little iterations. You don't get 125.0 and 125.1. You go from, whatever, 96 to 120, something, whatever. I don't know, I'm making those up. But but you ensure that if a user's going to YouTube, which is like the
Yeah.
first place anybody goes to try out their browser,
Right.
especially in a hobbyist type environment, because you can check your video, you can check your audio, you can check everything all in one spot. Bam, done. Well, it better play, and you can't always guarantee that with these other browsers if there's not a chain for keeping them updated over time as different things change. Now,
Yeah, and it's certainly less of an accusation of poor choices on your part as it is just how heavy modern browsers are because they're all that way. And really, the
Yeah.
expectation is that you have to have many gigabytes of available memory to have multiple tabs open. I mean, I normally have dozens of tabs open, and I have add-ons that will put them to sleep and try to free up some of that memory, but it's not unusual. This system has 16 gigs of memory. It's not unusual that Firefox is using 10 of it. I mean, it seems ridiculous that that's the case, but it does.
Yeah, there are trade-offs when bringing old systems back to life, and it doesn't matter how lightweight you can make your desktop environment. You've discovered this with your tab experiment, that modern applications expect RAM to be present, and you can mimic it to a point with swap, but it will slow down life. Okay,
Yeah.
so antiX says, okay, that's fine. We understand that on your EEPC 904HA that is 32-bit only with one core. It came out so long ago, no one remembers. Indiana Jones found it in a cave one day. That thing can't stream YouTube. I mean, it can, but the experience is really bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you go into the multimedia applications menu of the antiX Live USB, you will find a YouTube video player that streams YouTube down to a local video player of your choice without the web browser. So at least you can have some decent YouTube experience without on an old machine, on a truly old machine, without having to have Firefox running, because that is a killer.
How does it stream it to an application? So like just a like
I don't
VLC?
know. It's magic. I don't know.
Oh, magic.
Well, I use
actually-
an app. I use an app that can pull down the video itself and either, transcode it to something else or just save it directly. I think is an M4V or an MP4, something like that.
MP4
So you can still-
usually you can if you can find a downloader like the old YouTube downloader or YT something, I forget the current name of the thing. There's applications for downloading them. VLC used to be able to stream directly. You give it a YouTube link, and as long as it wasn't DRM'd, you could stream it that way. So there are ways to do it. YouTube does provide an interface for some of these things. Now, YouTube tends to change the API or the way applications access those things, and so every now and then they break. And YTP is a traditional example of that. The thing updates constantly because YouTube's constantly changing how it operates. So sometimes they quit working, and then and then you wait for an update, and then they start working again. But it is possible to work outside the browser.
The cat and mouse game. Yeah, I saw just
bit.
as an aside that YouTube they're going to do something where if a third party app blocks ads, they'll block access to or something. I think they're going to be more selective.
Yeah, I
Whatever.
actually just tried. I said that about the YouTube downloader, and then I couldn't get a list, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it seems like sometimes YouTube DL will work. Sometimes it just doesn't work. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's WTDLP now, right? So I
Is
think
it?
that's the new one. I think that's the new downloader.
They work
Took
for
over for YouTube download, or
Oh.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I use a different one, but
Yeah, it just released 2 weeks ago. YT-DLP.
YT-DLP.
Yep. Because they start working on the other one, I think. They abandoned it.
Really? I wonder why.
Yeah, they were getting cease and desist, didn't they, or something like that?
Oh.
And then GitHub fought for them or something because there was something like innately pirating inside the thing. But I think they were using some kind of old copyrighted material, something with testing the application itself,
Oh, I
and that's why
remember
they
that,
got in trouble.
So I just fired up the YouTube video player that's on the antiX full ISO right now, and I was slightly confused. I got me a console, a terminal emulator with a search prompt, so I searched for something of my own, and I got a list, and I could arrow up and down. It's all in the console. Arrow up and down to get the whatever video I wanted to play. Hit enter, and it actually fired off MPV, and played the video in MPV. So that's how it was. That's how that's how that thing was working. But it was doing it. All that was outside of Firefox. I don't even have Firefox running right now, except for the chat room. But everything else was in the little terminal prompt. It was very quick, actually. Once I understood what it was asking me to do, which was just to give it a search prompt, it worked fine. But those are the things you gotta live with when you're trying to. Those kinds of things are the things people sometimes, if they want to bring an old computer back to life that's truly old, that's the kind of thing that you can really extend the life of something if you're willing to live outside the browser for a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's several items in there. There's online radio. There's a few things in there that they provided out of the box to help with that. You lose so much just in the graphical interface of the browser and JavaScript processing and all the graphics acceleration that a modern web browser does. You don't need it for a lot of things. Browsers are convenient unless your machine can't handle it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very heavy.
The YouTube video player thing is pretty cool.
Right? Like, I'm going to go play with it after we're done.
No, I mean it's actually really cool. It's kind of it almost feels like you're going a little bit back in time to like a whole nother era of streaming content. And yeah, no, this is cool. This is very cool.
Wait, you like something that makes you feel like you've gone back in time?
I mean,
I don't believe
it's
it.
why I like DeLoreans. I mean, come on.
Well, if you like things that go back in time, Antix is the place, because not only is it run on old hardware, but it's like the place where old forgotten applications live forever. Like we have Roxfiler in here. It's not the default anymore. It used to be the default, but in our modern age, it was getting a little off-putting to even the hobbyists. So now there's a somewhat more traditional Linux file manager. But Rox is like the one-click wonder horse of file managers. It's so weird. Like, there's no other file manager like Rox, and that's its charm and its downside.
Oh no, I think I can't underscore or understate how cool this player thing is.
We're never going to get Nate back. He's
done.
He's gone.
No, this is, oh my goodness. This is so fantastic.
I think they found his new app appetizer for next time.
He's
Oh my
he's totally dusting off something old and ancient so he can run videos in the background now.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. Nailed it. Okay, so the SM Tube. Now, the YouTube video player, you can type in the terminal and search, and you get like output in terminal and everything else. The player didn't work quite right for me, but the SM Tube, it looks like, internet, HTML 1.0, like the first version, like I'm going to Geocities and I'm clicking a link on Geocities kind of a thing, but it's actually, and then it brings up a video player and it works great. Oh my gosh. This is so awesome.
Wow. I've really got to get up on my pop culture here. 4 of the top 5 are Taylor Swift. Okay. Well, she does have a new album.
See, that's when you're not logged in, you see the just generalized feed, and it's always it's never anything I've
that's
seen.
the other thing. Those console apps, you're not logged in, so
Yeah.
do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Search for whatever you want. I won't judge.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Antix is worth it just for this piece right here. It makes YouTube fun again. I mean, you can't comment, so that, I guess that takes that away, but this is too cool. All right, now I do have to get something old and crusty, and I want to see how far I can take this thing. Man, this is cool.
Hey, Dolphin, can you talk about the different kernels that you offer with antiX?
Yeah, so I'll start at the front. So at the very front end, when you boot the system on the live, you can boot either a legacy kernel, which I think right now, I think it's 5.10, I think. And then you also get the current Debian stable kernel, which is 6.1. And I haven't looked in the package manager lately to see what other kernels are available. But Anti rolls antiX kernel. He doesn't just use the Debian. Actually, I'm gonna back up. Those actually aren't Debian kernels; they're antiX kernels. He compiles them himself from the kernel.org sources. Let's see if I can remember where package installer is. Here we go. And kernels. What's he got in here? Yeah, he's got the Debian. He's got the antiX 6.1. He's actually got an antiX 4.19 as well. And every now and then you get people who can't even boot a kernel beyond like 5.10, and 6 is they don't even try. So the if you can get the live system to actually get a kernel installed, you can switch on the live system. You can change kernels on the live system, and then take that live USB to the computer that can't boot with the modern kernel, and use the older LTS kernel and boot the live system with that. So there's all sorts of tricks. Now, is it a little involved? Yeah, it's a little involved. I got videos on the idea of changing the live systems kernel, but it makes it possible.
It works.
It works. And the guy who came up with who did the lion's share of the work with the current antiX live system is his online name's BitJam, and he's kind of a genius when it came to running the init. And what's hilarious is I don't even think he runs antiX. I think he runs Gentoo himself. But it just every little thing in there was like a challenge. Can I make this work? Can I make this better? And once he got the idea that we was going to focus on the live USB, it just kind of exploded. And he and Antti really went to town. I mostly helped debug back in those days, but that system is largely the same now. We're basically maintaining it now because it's held up really well over the years. But anyway, if you're listening to BitJam, hi. I know sometimes you do. So he's still out there, probably in the desert. But yeah, so if you just boot the full ISO, you get a choice of 2 from the boot menus. And I think it default. I don't remember which way it defaults because I changed mine already. But the system I have to go 6.1 or higher, or I don't get a graphical. X doesn't start right. So, but you get that choice right out of the gate. I talk about the live system a lot. It's like the best thing about antiX because of the flexibility. Need something that needs the 4.19 kernel? Hey, you can make that, no problem. Bam. Even if you didn't want to do it on the live, if you installed it on a system, use snapshot to make a new ISO with a new kernel, you can do it that way too. There's like 100 different, like everything in Linux. There's 100 different ways to do what you want to do, but we try to make it easy.
You're muted, Nate.
So I think this antiX is going to end up on an Inspiron 9400 that I just dug out of the bin. That means something different in the UK. So I want to see how well this does and see if I can, I think it'd be fun to see how long I can live. Not for work stuff. It's just not going to work for work. That won't. Or will it? Probably not. Anyway, so can you run Flatpak in antiX?
You can. I'm not sure it's set up by default, but you can install Flatpak and run it.
Okay.
Flatpak doesn't require systemd for anything. So as long as the application itself isn't expecting some sort of systemd service on the back end to be present, Flatpak itself doesn't mind. I normally run. I don't have any installed on antiX right now, but on my MX system, I have I have plenty of flat packs installed without systemd running. So
So this has a whopping 1440 by 900 pixel resolution.
wow.
So, but it's a big honking thing. I think it'll be fun to play with, I think.
What kind of CPU and RAM does it have?
I don't know yet. I'm not there
Do you
yet.
know? Do you know if it's 64-bit at least?
I don't know. I'm still figuring it out.
Honestly, Nate, I could see you walking into a meeting with a laptop and booting it off a floppy disk and saying, "Hold on just a minute. It's working."
Just one more floppy, then I'm ready.
Well, I know it's going to be DDR2. It's 2006. That'd be DDR2. So Intel, no, it's Intel Core 2 Duo, so it's really not that old. Just 18 years old.
As long as it's 64-bit, it's not that old. That's how
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it too. So it's 17-inch, 16:10 ratio, 1440 by 900. Probably has spinning Rust hard drive, of course. And it's currently running Windows XP, but I think it'd be, this be an interesting test. So it's got the T2300. So
That is such a dog of a CPU. Oh my gosh.
it'll be fun. So
On those older machines, if the CPU is actually socketed, a T2300 can be replaced by a T9600 quite easily, and it's dirt cheap. If you could get into the box, that is, easily.
it's a Dell, so it's not too bad. It shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
So it has the ATI Mobility Radeon X1400 with a whopping 256 megabytes of VRAM. So that's pretty.
My
intense.
X61 has a Radeon 7000 with 16 megs of RAM and a single core CPU, and it worked quite nicely with antiX, even with Firefox ESR running. I did load up auto tab discard, and it went pretty aggressive with sleep tabs after like a minute of not looking at a tab. So it kept my memory usage down pretty good, and Firefox was pretty responsive. Yeah.
The battery's taking a charge too right now. It was flashing, but now it's not. Now it's actually showing just charging.
Yeah. Good.
Still has life.
Maybe it has one more trick in its up its sleeve with antics. Now does MX have that same, like the SM tube? Is that a thing on other distributions? I've never heard of it. So
I presume it exists someplace. We don't pre-install it. I don't know if it's a Debian item or something Anti compiles for his own repo.
oh, SM tube is
Actually, I just checked, and it is in the Nix repository.
it's also in the open source repositories. Hot dog.
It's in the Debian stable, so you can get it there also.
Yeah, that SM tube is not too bad. Man,
One of the features I really liked is somebody actually has a script for ZRAM. I don't know who did it, but you type in ZRAM and must have been a script in it. Install it. Worked very well.
yeah. I think Starlink is in my future here because this is ridiculous. Every time the internet drops out, it's like everything just kind of goes nutty. Yeah. So yes,
Yeah, ZRAM's another one that on the surface, it seems like, why would I'm already RAM strapped. Why would I give up a chunk of my RAM
I know.
to make swap? But it's actually using a compressed file system in the RAM drive. So it can be okay. I wouldn't get too aggressive with a machine if it's got less than 2 gigs of RAM, but ZRAM is certainly faster than, well, it's RAM, so it's pretty fast.
Right.
it's definitely going to be faster than an old spin and rust 160 gig hard drive on a SATA 3 bus. That's like orders of magnitude faster. And if you're RAM strapped and you're hitting that just by opening Firefox up, well, give yourself 250 megabytes of ZRAM, and actually be in function a little bit more than that because it's compressed. And then let Firefox hit activate swap. It'll probably be faster than just swapping directly to the hard drive.
I did try that on an older machine. I think it was a X61 ThinkPad, and my CPU just pegged.
Well,
Fan was just going nuts. CPU utilization on these slower, older CPUs, yeah, cranks up pretty hard.
yeah, my only actual true 32-bit machine left is the old EPC netbook, and when it would spike, lots of things can spike the CPU, and those original series Atoms spike pretty fast.
Yeah, you just have to move your mouse cursor, apparently.
Well, I mean, yeah, actually, if you've got something where you're hovering over and you're about to pull up a tooltip by accident,
yes,
the whole system just slows down. Or heaven forbid, a graphical preview window pops open, and then you have to wait 5 minutes for your mouse to move again before it all catches up. Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's life it's life with stuff that anybody else would have recycled long ago, and that's antics that's where antics lives, is in this with these folks.
If there was ever a time where keyboard shortcuts were faster, that's the best time ever.
Yeah. Well, the good news is ISWM doesn't do graphical preview windows, so unless you throw one of the other desktops on there, you don't have a problem.
Well, very cool. So I learned a lot today so far. So SM Tube, ZRAM. I've heard of it, but actually it's pretty easy to activate apparently. Well, at least in some distros. How would you activate that in antiX? Is there an easy button for that?
Yeah, you just type in basically ZRAM and tells you what to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've learned about ZRAM.
Yeah, it says run with root, and then you run with root, and then it tells you what to do, and you just basically type in start. ZRAM, the sudo ZRAM start. There's a script. There has to be a script in this thing to do it, which someone must have made. It works very well. I mean, for an older machine, I'm like what Dolphin was saying. It for some reason it sounds counterintuitive, but it does help them go a little quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get used to the fact that on an old machine, you're going to go to swap. If you're RAM strapped, you're going to swap. There's a balancing act of, okay, how little swap do I have to give it, and how much better will that experience be? And this is why the ZRAM swap default values are really low. Like I want to say it's like 256 megabytes, something like that, per swap.
So,
but
how does it compress it in memory? Like how does that actually work? So it just uses a compression algorithm to compress it.
I think it's just using a compression algorithm when it stores everything back. That will be up for the ZRAM gurus, which is not me. It's like Squash SF file systems. They're all compressed too.
Yeah.
And then there's that other one, Z swap.
If you ever use Fedora, you're using ZRAM by default.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So here's an interesting little tidbit. So the guy that takes care of the installer, he's also an official. Now he's mostly with the MX project, but we try to make sure things work right with antics. We don't try. That's a core value. We got to make sure that if we change something in the installer, it still has to work in antics preferably without them having to do anything. And one of the things he added here lately is, okay, I'm on an old system, which he uses these I think Panasonic made them. They're real tough notebook computers. The tough books, the tough books. He's got one of these. He's got one of these things, and he needed he needed some swap for the installer to work right. And so now, if ZRAM swap is installed but not active, but the installer thinks it's going to need some swap to operate, the installer will start up a ZRAM swap, do its thing, and then it will be disabled when when you reboot. It'll just start up just enough for it to survive whatever it is it has to do. I think it's somewhere in the partitioning. It has to have it runs into trouble, but yeah. So the installer will spin up ZRAM on its own if there's no other swap present.
Wow, this is very fascinating. That might make some old netbooks more useful if you use ZRAM then, like 2 GB RAM devices.
Yeah, that's the limit of my machine is two. I put in a second stick of RAM in mine to get it up to 2 gigs, and I think they're mismatched. I swear to God, this thing was faster with 1 gig of RAM than it is with 2. But I'm not taking it out because it need it these days. But yeah, it's you play if you play in the dumpster dived computers. These are all the tricks that make it. Make things work better.
See, this is what I like about Linux Saloon. I get another smattering of things to try and ideas. That just seems like that's like what I get out of these. So
this was like I was saying, was it yesterday, the day before, how you've really been firing off the blog posts with utilities. And you're like, yeah, they're just all things from the show notes. So here you go. I think this could be another blog post.
Well, actually, I think I got like 3 or 4 now, just from tonight. But I don't call them blog posts because that sounds like I'm saying something important. It's more of a blathering. So just to make sure you understand, it's not quite a blog. But yeah, no, this is actually very handy stuff here. It's like, how much more can you eke out of some dumpster dive machines? I mean, like Ron, you're probably saving Ron's, entire stink books. What are they called? ThinkPads.
ThinkPads. That X31 cost me about $3,600 back in 2005.
Wow, you better get every penny out of that.
Getting rid of it. Ever.
Gonna drive that thing right into the ground.
Well, there's ZRAM and then there's Z swap. And they're different. Now, I tried to play with both of them to see which one was faster or quicker. And I think it matters on what kind of machine you have.
I think the reason why you use ZRAM versus C swap is that C swap will not give back like the RAM that it's not using or something like that. And ZRAM will do that.
Yeah.
I don't know about performance of one is better that way. I'm not sure about that.
Right.
I actually wanted to go back to Ron for a second. That system from 2005, what type of maintenance have you had to do on it since then?
I beat it on it till about 2013, and I went through 2 keyboards.
Keyboards, okay. 2
keyboards. I replaced it twice, and I guess I'm on my 2nd battery. Yeah. Okay. But I have an Ultra Base for it, and the Ultra Base has a secondary battery because I never used the optical drive in that little Ultra Base dock-like thing. So, yeah, I only had to ditch the battery once. Yeah.
Gotcha. But I had assumed keyboard. If you used it for any amount of time, yeah, keyboards. They last as long as they last.
They did last and they kept working, but a number of the characters were sort of worn off to the point where I couldn't tell what they were, and it didn't make any difference really. But visually, it was just offensive, so I had to replace them.
It makes it look old when it's like that. Yeah. Well, I mean, it just, if you're still using it, like my system now is 6 coming on 7 years, runs perfectly. I don't have any problem. I mean, the hinge is a little messed up, but it doesn't really, heard anything. I've had to replace the keyboard and the battery. The screen's perfectly fine, and the keyboard's fine now. Hopefully, I don't have to do that again because I had to completely disassemble it to get to
It was an
to
XPS,
get
right?
to the keyboard.
This
Yeah,
is my
XPS.
daily, and that daily is an X220 from 2012.
Okay.
And I've had the keyboard replaced 3 times. I don't remember how many times the batteries have been ditched and replaced.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been bumped up to a 2 terabyte SSD, 16 gigs of RAM. Still working beautifully. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how. So you get a new system, right? And you're like excited. I did this. I upgraded my desktop, and I'm like, okay, I've got more cores and a faster processor. And I mean, yes, it is a little bit faster, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I paid all that money to go 30 seconds quicker on a, if I'm zipping a file or so, you know what I mean? It's like,
No, absolutely.
I
I
you're not
always
really.
find
Sorry, go ahead.
that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, you really have to be pushing the limits of your performance to feel like a 5-year-old system is just not powerful enough anymore.
Exactly. And the most powerful thing I've ever needed to do was interacting visually with people in Zoom. And I use that little thing. I'm staring at a T520 right now, which is harkens back from the same era, 2012. That's working quite fine. At my office, I use a ThinkPad P17, 17-inch beast, mostly for meetings. And it's really quite a stupid decision my IT guy made, I thought, because it costs a lot of money. The speed of which you can interact with folks on Zoom, well, it's the same as any other machine.
Yeah.
So why did I go here? I'm not sure.
I don't
Right.
So, yeah, and you can only type so fast.
So when you think about it,
YouTube is only so interesting.
that's true.
So,
And I was thinking, you got this 2012 machine that you're using, right? If you were to take that back to with the IBM 5150 that was released in 1981, I think, which is an 8088 processor. So go forward in time 12 years, that was a 486. I think that's roughly when the 486 was kind of mainstream, maybe even Pentium at that time. I think 46. Anyway, so going from an 8088 to a 46, that's a huge jump as far as capabilities. But 2012 to now, unless if you're doing a lot of video rendering or AAA gaming, you're not really utilizing that upper end, CPU.
Yeah. I mean,
stuff.
if you're into the
absolutely not.
core processors at all, I mean, even the earlier core processors, the i5, i7, I mean, they're, as long as you have reasonably fast storage and enough memory, again, it's not that it can't do it, it's just slower. And even then, honestly, it can be so modestly slower that you think, I've got this old, I don't know where the heck it is now. I have this I think it's 5-6 years old. It's a Latitude tablet PC. So I thought the form factor before I got it was going to limit the performance, and I mean it's got a 8th gen, I believe 8th gen. So it's 4-core, 8-thread, 16 gigs of RAM. And even though it had nice specs, I just kind of expected it to run slowly. And the reality is, I actually really enjoy using that system. The only thing I don't like is it's only a 12.3-inch screen. So for me, that's a little small. But just for word processing, internet browsing, it does everything. I mean, and not just acceptably, it does it really, really well, And I paid, I want to say $200 maybe for that, and it's just a great system, and it's a complete ripoff of a Surface Book Pro. Shameless. How Dell didn't get sued by Microsoft for that one, I don't get it. But I mean, it's literally the same thing, except you can open up the back of it. It's not glued together.
So it's
but yeah,
better.
I mean, yes, exactly. But the idea that as long as a system is serviceable and it wasn't junk to begin with, and you know, it can do what it needs to do. It's just a shame to ever, you know, just get rid of something for no good reason. You know, what happens, I think, to a lot of consumers, especially, is they get a Windows laptop and it after a couple years, it just starts to get slow and not work well and has a bunch of, you know, 3 different versions of antivirus on it and you know everything else that you know, and they bought the cheap one at Walmart, so it doesn't have it probably has like a hybrid drive or maybe an SSD, but a really cheap one, or you know, and I could see at that point where they don't understand the basic components, and so they think, well, this is junk. I got to get a new one.
Mhm.
That's the only way to have a better experience. Um, and so it's just a shame that, you know, I mean, I've rescued many of those systems, thankfully, just by upgrading to an SSD or cleaning them off,
Mhm.
just putting Linux on them. It makes a
I
big
mean,
difference.
many a times too, I find repasting the CPU quite often the machine will hit high temps real quick, start throttling down, and seem to be slow because it
Yeah,
is running slowly.
right.
Pop the heatsink off, repaste it.
Yep.
Bob's your
Yep.
uncle. So
My the system my wife's using is an Inspiron. It was doing the same thing. It was just screaming constantly. You know, not it just at rest. It was hot, and I did that. And it's probably like 8 or 9 years old at this point. So yeah, I pulled the heatsink, repasted it. It was like brand new. You know. Now I
excellent.
can't expect a normie to do that. I mean,
True. True. Yeah.
um, not that I would think it's like beyond most people, but you'd have to at least you have to tread lightly in a laptop.
Absolutely. One thing I
Start
find
yanking
very
those little ribbon
egregious right
cables.
now is laptops, especially that are seventh gen. So like an i7 7700, I think it was, an i5 7300 CPUs. Since they're not sanctioned for use with Windows 11, I have so many clients e-wasting
Mm,
perfectly working machines.
yeah,
They're not allowed to give it away, liability concerns.
yeah,
So they literally give it away to e-waste type companies who hopefully resell it so it can have some life. I'm not sure though.
yeah,
And absolutely refusing to like run Rufus and strip out the CPU check and things of that nature because that's corporate policies do not allow for that kind of behavior. So yep,
yeah,
4-year-old machines that are working beautifully
mm,
because Windows 11 is not officially supported. Well, time for it to go.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
they need to run Linux.
I wouldn't argue with that at all. Although I do have to say though, my nephew did install some sort of a stripped down version of Windows 11 on a second generation Core. I don't know if it's a Core i5 or Core i7 machine. It doesn't run too bad. I mean, it's still a potato, but it does run reasonably well. Actually, better than on the stripped down Windows runs way better than a Windows 11 Pro on a
Mm,
12th generation machine actually. So
Wow.
You know, I guess the one reason I would upgrade is for something that's more innovative, like the, um, sorry, Nate, what is it you have? What's that?
the framework.
Framework. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. I do. I mean, I don't think I would be reconfiguring it very often. I think probably what I would do is maybe have a couple extra ports to use them when I needed them, or I would probably want to figure out like how I wanted the touchpad and you know, the sort of the layout of the deck, and and then just I don't think I would change it much, if ever, after that. But I love the idea of being able to then upgrade components if I needed to. The motherboard,
Mhm.
you know, everything is just they don't solder any RAM or anything like that, do they?
Nope. But CPUs
Yeah.
are soldered though anymore.
Well, yeah. And I honestly don't know that I would need it, just like we were talking here. I mean, I don't, it would take a very long time for me to need to, you know, upgrade a CPU just because it doesn't really, it's not that big of a payoff to go through that.
Unless the future CPUs will have NPUs and things of that nature, where you actually
Yeah.
take advantage of it with some app that it's not too intrusive in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah,
But like Nate said,
well,
I
that's far
think when
away.
you go from something, and I completely agree, the Moore's law paradigm back in the day, because technology advanced so quickly, you really would, if you had a 5-year-old machine, you would see a major difference in those machines, right? Uh, whereas today, yeah, there just hasn't been any real innovation in terms of like what you get out of a CPU, at least from an x86 standpoint.
Power
You know,
efficiency.
maybe, yeah, the
Yes.
TDP, that's true. That's true. But in terms of like real innovation, I think that's what's exciting about ARM and the Snapdragon stuff that they're showing off as an alternative to the Mac M1. That would be nice. I mean, the idea that an M1 or that type of chip is so power efficient and so powerful, and so battery efficient, it's just like that solves so many problems with having a laptop. And especially if I was still traveling like I did, that would be amazing to have a system that ran, more than the workday, you know, on a single charge, and was performant doing it too. That would be neat. So we'll see where that goes, I guess.
For sure. And, we are at that time, I guess since we're broken anyway, half broken. We got audio, but no, I just have a static image of everybody right now. And so I guess we probably should go ahead and close it out. I guess it's a really good picture of my like disappointed face, which is what I appreciate. So anyway, next week is a news flight night. So bring your topics, and we can chat about those. Hopefully my voice will be recovered from that Texas dust that I experienced this past week. At least that's what I'm blaming it on. So it's time for last call. Eric, you are doing things, it seems like, out there on the World Wide Web. What are you doing these days? Are you still distro hopping, digesting, or
Yeah.
what's next?
Sorry. Yeah. Mainly podcast. It's interesting. I went through this I go through these cycles of being heavily engaged and being, excited and interested, and everything I do is, related to, Linux and open source and following the news and participating in discussions and all. And then I'll eventually burn myself out where I sort of step back for a little while to, sort of recover. And it's also nice because you let things get ahead of you a little bit. When you're really following things, I mean, you're just looking for something new. Every new release of a distro, you download it so you can, fire it up and see what it looks like. That kind of gets to be a little frenetic. So anyway, it was nice to take some time off, but now I'm sort of back into, distro hopping, podcasting, stuff like that. So Distro Hoppers Digest 51, episode 51 just came out. So that is out there for you to listen to. And yeah, doing Linux OTC, Mintcast, here, Linux Lugcast, which is another stream. So yeah, sort of all over the place.
Well, excellent. I think it's one of those things I've been meaning to join at some point in time. The it was that Friday night, right? That's when you do that
First and third Fridays. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a fun.
Yeah. LinuxLugcast.org.
Yeah, it seems like a fun one to do.
It is. It's neat.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and I'm glad you were here tonight because my voice is tanking even more now.
Yeah.
So nice to offset that. So Steve didn't join us, but he was in the chat. Steve's very own. He does a stream Sunday mornings at 8 Central, 8:30 Central now. Used to be 8, but he keeps sliding it back. And I guess he's using Windows now, so I think that's why he doesn't join. I don't know. Or he's like half Windows or half Linux. Whatever makes him happy. I don't know. He does some cool OBS stuff, regardless. Linux User Space, great podcast. I didn't give Leo the show notes ahead of time, so he let me know. But he did say Linux User Space is finally back with the LXQt history since the last Linux Saloon. And coming up, a topic episode and then a history of XZ. Or is it ZX? Anyway, so another history episode, which is great. I'm part of a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We didn't record this past week, but maybe we're going to catch up real quick. I don't know. Well, I'll find out. If not, there'll be 3 weeks in between episodes, and it's probably my fault because I was in Texas last week. How many times am I going to say that? I have a website called cubiclenate.com. I tend to write things. Lately, it was a couple of terminal-based tools, one called Disk, which I learned, I think, here from Jinda, D-Y-S-K. I think it was Jinda who said it. Or was it you, Eric? Who said it?
Not me.
I think it was Jinda.
Uh-oh. I'm in trouble.
It was Jinda. No. I love Disk.
This was me.
Oh, Sean. Disk. D-Y-S-K. Great tool.
Wow.
I was so excited. I had to write like crazy.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it's how you can customize it and add other things, move stuff around in the columns that you want. Super simple, great syntax. It's not confusing at all. Look at the reference. I'm like, oh, that's simple. And you can just type away. Great. And then also I did another on BTOP. So after doing Disk, I made it mention of BPyTop. And then someone left a comment saying, no, the new hotness is BTOP. You know, where are you at, old man? They didn't say it like that, but that's kind of how I read it. And so I wrote an article about BTOP and how cool that is. And it is an incremental improvement over BPyTop. It uses fewer resources for sure. I didn't get an exact measurement, but it does have fewer resources. It does use fewer resources because it doesn't show up in your list of what's taking up processes now. You know, like you can tell it's not taking up as much to use. So you can keep that running in the background and probably not even notice it unless, you know, you're running some 2006 potato like I have back here. So you can check that out, cubiclenate.com. I write things sometimes. So Linux Saloon is part of the Text Digital Network. Check out more great shows at textdigital.com. And I thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, and tolerating the technical difficulties when internet goes out. So thank you for those of you that stuck around. And if you didn't stick around, hey, thanks for sticking around as long as you did. When I get
It just
involved,
shows you. I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw in. It just shows you if you really want to participate.
there's always
You got
the
to get
Zoom.
in the Zoom
Yep.
meeting.
And you can just turn off your camera. I mean, I don't even know what Eris looks like, and I've known him for like half a decade now. So I could be walking past him every day, and I would never know it unless I heard his voice.
See?
And now he's laughing.
Well, if that is his real voice, you wouldn't know.
That's a
It
good
could
point.
be. It could be AI generated.
But we didn't have that. We didn't have that like 5 years ago, though, and his voice hasn't changed so far as I can tell.
As far as you know,
That's true.
or
Now,
Yeah,
Eris's
Be an
name
alter
does have-
ego.
Eris's name does have AI in it.
it does.
Mhm.
You can't spell Eris without AI.
as long as it uses the AI for good,
Yeah,
it's fine.
right. It's
Eris, so you're using the AI for good, aren't you? Come on.
Always.
Did anybody have anything
Okay,
else they wanted to?
I believe you.
Yeah, if good. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to plug before I close this whole thing out? I know Frederick had to go, but anybody have anything else want to plug before I? No.
Yeah,
Allie.
FreeOffice. Is there an easy way to install FreeOffice?
Yes,
Okay.
there is, and well, you're running on MX Linux, right?
Yeah.
I'll take care of you right after this. Is there anything else?
Okay.
I know that Sean was doing some 3D printing. Ron is resurrecting old hardware like a Frankenstein. Yeah. And then Terry is trying to push me to watch TV. So thank you, Terry, for that. Or white chocolate, whatever you want to call yourself. But anyway. All right. So I want to thank you all for being involved.
Friendly TV.
Friendly TV. He wants to talk about friendly TV. We got to figure that out at some point in time because I keep pushing that off. He's been saying it for like six months now, I think. And I keep I know because I just don't watch TV very much. Anyway,
Right.
thank you, everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas. Oh, I like how GitHub allows you to tip your developers a little easier these days if the developer likes that. Yeah, check that out.